Welcome everyone, this is Tactical Itch here. Last week we have a couple videos talking about Total War Warhammer 3 and the patch 1.2 update. So I thought today we will be going back to the fields of the Warhammer 2, where we have an Empire battle versus the High Elves, with the High Elves played by yours truly and the Empire played by AC Moores, a really good player who totally outplayed me in this battle. Well, that's a spoiler there, but basically I still want to showcase this battle, as my opponent here has a really well thought out build with a lot of synergy between different units and perfectly counteracting my infantry spam on the High Elf side. So, for the army builds of my opponent, we have a front line of swordsmen, one of them the Sigma Sons Unbreakable, and at the back we have a whole line of Empire Knights to counteract any heavy cavalry and flying monsters of the High Elf roster, supported by a bunch of spears on the flanks, as well as a single halberdier backing up a single unit of silver bullets who are hiding, stalking on the plain sight, ready to unleash their devastating magical bullets into any threats of the High Elves dare to come close. Now, the real killing power of this build are these two rather rare units, the War Wagons of Mortars. They are great tanky artillery models who can lay down devastating firepower into some compact infantry formations, and they will be responsible for eliminating my archer support. As for the leadership, we have a single Volkmar Grim with nothing but the Jade Griffin providing the self-healing. A banishment comes with the Volkswagen as well as the Grand Soul Fire Bombardment. For the spellcasting department, we have a single Bright Wizard with nothing but the Kindle Flame effect, Fireball, and also Burning Head. Now for the High Elf army, I went for the numbers here with a bunch of spears mixed in with some rangers in the front line, backed up by more spears, a whole line of arrow fire, 3 Loven Sea Gods mixed in with 2 archers protected by a bunch of silver helms, Illyrian Reavers. And for counteracting the Empire artillery, we have some Eagle Claw bolt throwers. As for leadership, we have a single prince on a horse with a full toolkit. And spell support wise, we have the Mage of Metal with the Plague of Rust, Searing Doom, as well as Final Transmutation. And without further ado, let's get the battle started, as we are now done with the army builds. One great advantage of Mortars War Wagons over regular mortars is that they have a lot more HP in each artillery model. That means that if they stand there and shoot against the Eagle Claw bolt throwers, they can tank quite a few hits, absorbing the damage while they themselves will be continuously lobbing those mortar fire into my units. As you can see here, the lightly armored rangers are already taking some significant HP losses, even with some occasional dodges, and with my opponent cunningly switching around targets, making my dodging much less effective, I was not able to mitigate most of the mortar bombardment. On top of that, there is the Fire Wizard there, lobbing all those fireballs into my Eagle Claw bolt throwers. Every single overcast fireball can snipe out an artillery model, and that means my artillery fight would definitely be losing, forcing me to push up with all my infantry. However, it is already in a bit of a disarray due to all those incoming mortar shots. 2 of these spearmen are already down to half health, with some of my rangers taking some noticeable damage. The mobility pushed up ahead a bit as well, alongside with the Loven Sea God and archers, but they are a bit overlapped onto each other due to my unorganized push. While at the back, I still have the Eagle Claw bolt throwers chugging in those shots into the biggest target I can find, while the mortars simply move out of the way due to their superior mobility. While my Eagle Claw bolt throwers, they don't have any wagons beneath them. They are not a mobile artillery platform, so they are stuck shooting whatever they can get their hands on, which is Volkmar the Grim, who is moving around and not exactly the easiest target to shoot at, while all these war wagons and the infantry line just pulled back, staying completely safe from my artillery shots while they themselves are continuously counter-firing. Therefore, despite these Eagle Claw bolt throwers not being threatened by any enemy mobility, they're still not getting any work done. Which is a problem for the bolt throwers, because there is still a Bright Wizard on the field ready to chuck in even more fireballs to destroy their models as soon as the cooldown for the fireball is done. While in the front, Volkmar the Grim is just ramming straight into my tattered rangers here, receiving some arrow fire in the process, but it is extremely effective in disrupting my push as my Sea Guards are now slowing down to shoot at Volkmars. And with them stationary, they are now even more vulnerable to the mortar fire, already receiving significant damage throughout the march. While in the front line, after a staggered push with my opponent's disruption and my poor micro, a ranging unit has reached the charging distance, throwing themselves straight onto some spears, but my opponent responded with a beautiful burning head straight down the line of these rangers and basically obliterating that unit. While on the flanks, there are some silver bullets shooting at my silver helms, doing some nice damage, but that of course means they are a bit exposed to the arrow fire and they have taken significant damage. While my infantry, the rangers, are now pushed back, unfortunately, due to the melee attacks of the swordsmen, who are not bad in melee at all. Combined with the constant fire support from the war wagon mortars, the rangers did not stand a chance in this fight. There's a lot of friendly fire coming in at this. The war wagons were automatically targeting the prince, doing some significant losses to the Sigmar sons, but they will be dying willingly for Sigmar, and since they do not break, it's not exactly the worst thing in the world. As for the high elf archers in the back line, after losing my front line, the rangers especially, they no longer have any screening units to protect them, exposing them to a massive push from all the Empire infantry. On the right flank of the humans Empire, we have an Empire Knight charging straight into some Silver Helms. The Silver Helms are tattered, but an overcast Plague of Rust was able to turn the tide with the help of some Loven Sea God. These Empire Knights just quickly obliterated in combat and will be quickly pushed off, but the rest of the High Elf lines are in a total disarray. The more numerous human forces are pushing straight through my crumbling infantry. Some swordsmen are breaking through as well, just running down my rangers. There's also a burning head dropped earlier, leaving behind a trail of nicely toasted elven bodies. I pull in some of my reserve Illyrian Reaver, hoping to find a decent engagement, but honestly, there's not that many options for me to charge at. Anything they charge will probably beat them down other than the silver bullets, and the mortar war wagons are still firing into my Loven Sea God. Volkmar dropping that Soulfire bombardment, obliterating some of my spears, and at the back, the Empire Knights are running unchecked. There are some spears nearby, rushing in, hoping to drag them down, while at the back, my Eagle Club bolt throwers are still firing one of them down to one single model. The other is still very healthy, but there's already some unchecked Empire Knights coming in, hoping to shut down my artillery pressure. In the front, the Prince is still pretty healthy overall, but unfortunately not fighting the best fight he can find. Surrounded by spears, he needs to get out and start running down Volkmar, or at least shut down the silver bullets who are just shooting away some of my tattered spears. At the back, the war wagons are totally unthreatened due to my mobility being eliminated earlier in the fight. Being charged down by some of the Empire Knights and whatnot, I basically lost all of my cavalry presence. The Mage of Metal has been dropping some Searing Doom, doing some minor damage, not really doing much honestly. Pretty much a waste of Winds of Magic. I did not have any good blobs to cast my Final Transmutation, and all I can shoot at with the Searing Dooms are pretty much spears and swordsmen. To finish things off, my opponent dropped in yet another beautiful Burning Hat, destroying a major part of my remaining units. The Illyrian Reaver spears, they all went down to that one cast. And at this point, army losses sealed my defeat. And now let's move on to the post-battle screen to talk about this build. Now let's put aside my terrible performance with my health army and let's look at my opponent's great combined arms strategies. With the mortar wagons at the back, he was pressuring my infantry line with those bombardments, and if I push up my Eagle Club bolt throwers, his Fire Wizard was ready to chuck those fireballs to snipe out my artillery models, while the war wagons would be able to tank out the damage coming from the Eagle Club bolt throwers, who need a lot of time to work them down. And that would buy enough time for the Bright Wizard to eventually win the artillery duel, as the bombardments from the war wagons would be killing my artillery crew and the fireballs would be killing the artillery themselves. And that forced me to push up my spears and rangers infantry as well as the rest of my archers to hopefully punch through their infantry. But that's where Volkmar the Grim comes in, with the chariot disrupting my infantry push and also the bombardments continuously, forcing me to dodge, interrupting my advance, and in the end my whole front line was in total disarray. I was trying to push up some Silverhelms and Illyrian Reavers as well to disrupt their units, but then the Empire Knights were ready to countercharge, keep my cavalry at bay, and also the backline safe, while the infantry are just backing up, avoiding contact with my infantry, basically giving more time for the war wagons to pull back, kite, and continuously shoot down my army. And this is a really nice example of artillery kiting using these mobile artillery platforms to pressure my infantry line, and I feel like this is actually something that is very useful even into Game 3, considering that Cathay and Kislev both have rather static infantry missile heavy formations. For example, Kislev can bring their Kossar spams with a lot of missile pressure, but a rather slow melee push and less penetration power, which means that they might be vulnerable to these kind of bombardments from the mortars if they try to bring more Kossar's infantry for that missile spam tactic and is running low on mobility. While Cathay, the static peasant, would be prime target for the missile fire, and then you can also use the fireball to snipe out their artillery shots, eliminating the threats to the war wagons. Overall, really nice performance from our opponent's AC Moore's army, with the war wagons earning way above their own value, and then the Empire Knights were doing some nice interception of my mobility, the Bright Wizard having some beautiful burning heads and fireballs, just a solid performance from all these units. As for my army, I was not able to do much with them, being subjected to the endless firepower coming from the mortars, and the Prince, while being rather healthy, was not able to catch Volkmar the Grim. Now, the Mage of Metal only earning back 100 value, a total disappointment. Contribution to the battle was using the Plague of Rust to debuff one of the Empire Knights to enable the Lothern Sea God to shoot them up. But other than that, not really much was done. You can see that the Lothern Sea God didn't earn back their value either, neither did the Silver Helms and Mobility. And of course, the Eagle Claw Bolters most certainly did not. And yeah, that's basically it for today's battle. I hope you enjoy it, and if you do, remember to hit the like and subscribe to get notified, stay up to date for any future content uploads, including more battle replays like this one, tips and strategies for Total Warhammer multiplayer, wild army builds, and occasionally meme videos and shit posts. And if you have any battle replays that you want to showcase, feel free to drop by my Discord or send me an email with the replay file attached. I'll be sure to check them out. And yeah, that's basically it for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich, signing out.